there. Hello there. Hello there. My name is HW, and thank you so much for listening to the Tone Junkie Podcast. This is episode 91. 91. Uncle Willie, that's a lot of episodes. I know, Uncle Willie, that is a lot of episodes. It's my how far we've come, and would you listen to that? Come on, John. The stylings of John Cordy on the podcast this morning. Woo! Come on. John is just an incredible player, and he's playing there the 68 Purple Plexi Kemper Profile Pack V2, and the V2 upgrade was free. If you didn't get that upgrade yet, email Tone Junkie, because we might not have gotten your upgrade form, but we got it out there to everybody. People going, HW, did you just give a free update to the best selling, one of the best sounding Kemper packs you've ever released, to your crown jewel in the vintage collection amplifier, the 68 Purple Plexi, HW's Purple Plexi? I did. From the Aston Pittman collection? Yes, I did. Free upgrade, because I'm so enamored with that amp. It's incredible. But that's the only guitar talk we're going to do for today, because today's episode is all about the stonk market. HW, what's the stonk market? I heard of the stock market. What's the stonk market? The stonk market is what all the cool kids are calling it these days. Now, HW, why are you talking about tones? I mean, why are you talking about stocks? Why don't you talk about tones? You usually talk about IRs and sounds and everything guitar. You know what? Last week was one of the craziest weeks in the market. I have a crazy story about some of my gains with a Z, gains, that's how we spell it, in the stock market last week, and it's why I was pretty silent on Tone Junkie, and I want to tell you about it. But I've been getting literally every day for the past 2 weeks questions. I want to start investing. How should I start? I want to start investing. How should I start? And I want to make sure that people know that just because I'm talking about GME doesn't mean I'm completely crazy and I have all my money in this failing video game retailer and all this craziness of what's going on. So today's episode's about stonks. I'm going to share with you everything I know, and I'm going to drop some knowledge on you. I've been investing for a long time, and I'm going to tell you about what I do and some of my beliefs, but I got to tell you, this is not investing advice. You should seek out the advice of a professional. This is for entertainment purposes only, and I'm going to be discussing some of the things that I do and what I invest in my portfolio, how I view the market, but you need to do your own research. Do not take my advice for it. Don't buy anything I'm talking about. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Remember that. This is entertainment only. Now that the SEC has logged off the podcast, we can get started. Okay. Uncle Willie. Jonathan, you trying to get rich? You know it, Uncle Willie. You know it. Because listen, here's the first thing you got to understand about investing, okay? You have to understand the problem, right? Investing is a solution to a problem. And here it is. Are you ready? The problem is you're gonna die. You are gonna die, okay? That's the problem. The problem is this body, when it starts out, look, let me put it like this. Shakespeare said that the gravedigger went back to work the day Hamlet was born. And what Shakespeare is saying there is that the day you begin to live is also the day you begin to die. Physiologically, we're born and we grow, and at some point we peak, we max out, we stop getting taller. Sometimes we still get wider, but we stop getting taller. We go through puberty, we become men and women, and then we really don't have any significant changes until we start getting like old. You know, we start, anyway, you know what I'm saying? We get to the point where the body's not changing. Things just start breaking down slowly over time. And so as modern medicine has extended our lives, we now are living much longer, but we're not always, a lot of those years that our life is extended doesn't always keep us a lot healthier. So you got to understand that at some point, most of us are eating, we're feeding our families, we're putting food on the table, and we're surviving. Our sustenance is coming from the sweat of our brow, our work. And when we are young and healthy, we can do that. But eventually, we will reach an age where the body begins to fail us, and you're going to die. And the only thing that you got working for you, providing you an income at that point, is capital. And capital, the ability of capital to make money, That is our economic system called capitalism. Capitalism is the economic system in which capital is allowed to make money from itself. Capital can be invested and returns capital to the capital holder, right? So a lot of people will tell you that as they get later on in life, one of the things they realized was their investments begin to make them more money than their labor. And those are people who start early and start young and make good investments. And I'm going to talk about that today. Now, the very basics are this. The key to becoming rich, the key to all investments, forget stocks, real estate, anything. You can boil it down to something much simpler. The key to growing one's wealth is simply to stop putting your money in things that go down in value and start putting them in things that go up in value, or at least maintain their value. So for example, contrary to what people say, a large television, although it might be sometimes called an investment, I'm investing, that's just something you might get a lot of use out of, but it's not an investment. It's not going anywhere. And I'll say this, stocks and real estate are not the only thing. There's a great many people who are able to achieve a level of capital preservation and even appreciation in alternative investments such as watches. Maybe they're a watch collector and they end up collecting. And over time, that collection actually gets to be very large. And while they weren't collecting with the intention of speculating that Rolexes are going to go up, a lot of times that happens. I myself own a number of alternative investments, which for me are amplifiers, guitar amplifiers. And simply the act of taking my money and not spending it on overpriced coffee or a brand new cell phone when it comes out. This is a new-ish phone, but it's not the newest. And you know, to be honest with you, I drive a Model 3. That's a nice car. I don't drive an S and I don't drive an X. And have my wife and I driven the X? Yeah, we really like it. And I talked about that on this podcast episode a couple weeks ago. We did go drive the Model X, but guess what? The Model X, top level, 120 grand, I think starting about 90. The Model X is an insane, awesome car, and I love that car. But you know what? We went and drove the Model Y, and that's the car I'm interested in because that's a value. Because to me, that $50,000 to $60,000 car is 75% of what you get in that Model X, but half the price. And ultimately, we decided this Model Y isn't a good solution for our family because in terms of space, it didn't give us enough. Maybe the third seat, the third row will decide something different. But you know what else works? Let's just keep our van. Let's just keep the Sienna. So look, straight up, I like nice things. I like really nice things. I love boutique guitars and vintage guitar. I got a boutique guitar here. I got a vintage guitar here. You know what I mean? This is a 63. This is a modern production thing. I got 45 vintage amps in the next room. I consider them to be alternative investments and I use them for work, right? It's how I make my living. But you have to be able to identify when things are not a good use of your money. It's okay to get nice things, especially if you can afford them, but you have to identify what you're going to splurge on and what you're really, and then you got to ask yourself, okay, am I just throwing a lot of money in something that's going to go down in value? Cars go down in value. So for me, I really love the Model 3. I love it's been my favorite car ever. I was never into cars. The Model 3 makes me happy to drive it every morning. It's so cool. The Model 3 also got me turned on to Tesla, which became my number one holding. And last year is why my return. I mean, look, just holding Tesla. People who are big into Tesla like myself had better returns than the top hedge funds. I mean, we outpaced the market. We outpaced all the hedge funds and everything. Was that guaranteed to be the case? Not at all. We got pretty lucky, pretty fortunate, but a lot of us could see that Tesla is the most important company in the world and that you should buy Tesla shares if you're in a position to invest. So let's back up and let's get to it. All that was to say, the first thing you have to do is decide, I'm going to put my money towards things that do not go down in value, that don't lose value. And when you do that, you will immediately notice your wealth start to go up. Because how can it not? right? If the money if you take any amount of money that you normally waste on coffee, on consumables, on whatever, on even things that go down in value, if you take that and put that into something which does not depreciate, which stays the same value or goes up, you cannot experience anything but an increase in your wealth. Your net worth will go up. Your wealth will increase. You could do that in anything. And for most people, for a lot of people just starting out, that's just the act of no longer putting the money in the garbage can. Just keeping it as cash will make it go up. Okay? But first piece of advice, if you've got a hobby see if there's something you can put your hobby dollars in that doesn't go down. So for me, vintage guitars, although they're more expensive, they don't go down in value like a new guitar does. This guitar, when I bought it, immediately was worth less. This guitar, when I bought it, was worth the same amount. This guitar costs more than this guitar, but this one still costs a lot more than this guitar because this one went down in value and this one stayed the same. And over time, I believe it'll go up in value. So that's the first thing, right? Cash is cash. You're just converting it into your stuff. And then you can convert it back into your stuff. Make sure you don't lose on those conversions or think about that. Now, for people who want to start investing, I have very, very simple, here's how I got started and here's what I recommend you do. Google some things like Google what a Roth IRA is. And look up guys like Dave Ramsey. Go on to, if you're younger and you don't like Dave and you go, I don't know about that whole debt thing. I don't 100% agree with Dave on debt. I don't think all debt is created the same. Certainly mortgage debt is not created the same, and leverage for investments. You're not going to be able to convince me that buying a rental property and using leverage is a bad investment. I just do not believe that. Conversely, I know a lot of people who use credit cards wisely and just get the points and they pay it off. And I do that. I do that with a lot of my AMP purchases. I just cycle the dollars through and I end up getting a lot of benefits for it. And so, Dave Ramsey got me out of debt early on. And I learned how I need to be allergic to consumer debt, and you should be too. So I like Dave. I think that's a great thing. If another place to go, Our Personal Finance on Reddit is an incredible place full of a lot of very smart people who are giving very universally accepted wise advice. And you can get your personal finances in order kind of by looking at some of the stuff they talk about. But one of the things they talk about is retirement savings. And in general, it's recommended here that that you view it like this. If you have an employer program, like at work, if there's a 401k and they will give you a match, go take that match. Here's why. If you can put $100 of your own money aside and they will give you another 100 on top of it, that is zero risk, 100% return right away. If you could show me any other zero risk, 100% return, instant return investment, I'll give you all my money. I'll let you double all my money. 100% return, zero risk, and I can do it right now. I'll sell Tesla. I'll sell my house. I'll sell the Model 3. I'll sell it all. I would take that in a heartbeat. And if you'll let me do that every year, bro, I'll own nothing. I'll keep all my money in cash. I'll rent and borrow everything, and I'll just let you keep doubling. That would be the most insane investment ever. That would be an endless money supply. Well, we don't have it endless. It's usually limited at like, hey, you can put in 3% or 5%. That's reasonable. Take advantage of that. Even if you put in $100 and they'll only give you $50 back, that's still the best investment in the world, right? That is still really the best investment in the world. In fact, I'll tell you the only investment better than that you can get is when consumables go on sale at Target. And if you see toothpaste at 50% off, One of the best investments you can get. It's a small dollar investment, but if you see toothpaste at 50% off, you should buy 1 year's worth of toothpaste right then, because you know you're going to use it, and you know you're going to use the same amount of toothpaste whether it's on sale or not. You use the same amount every morning. Deodorant, same thing. Shampoo, hair gel. These are consumables that you use all the time. If it goes 50% off, you normally buy it for $5 a tube and you can get it for $2.50. I'm telling you, it's a really good investment to buy a year or 2 years supply of it. If you got a shelf at home, you can stick it on. Now, my wife would get mad at me if I did that, but I do encourage her, if it goes on sale, buy double, buy triple the amount you normally would, because that's 100% return. In a month, you're going to spend $5 on it. So if you just spend another $2.50 right now, you save $5 later. So it's 100% return instantly. Those are the only two places that you are almost guaranteed to get 100% return in such a short window of time. It's employer matches and buying toothpaste and hair gel and detergent, the consumables you use all the time and you always will use. Buying those when they go half off. Those are the best investments you can make by the numbers. But after that, what do you want to do? You want to take advantage of that employer program, let them give you free money. Even if you put the money in and you don't invest it, they'll give you free money. You got 100% return, but you should invest it. And sometimes employer programs, they don't have as many options to invest in, but that's okay. That's okay. Look for something like an index fund. Look up what an index fund is. An index fund is a little pool you can put $100 in, and they take your $100 and they divide it over like the top 500 companies in America, or they divide it over the whole stock market, or they divide it over, here's a bunch of real estate that we put together, right? So it spreads your money out, and with spreading your money out comes diversification, comes a lot of safety. You're not going to get rich overnight, but the thing that's going to make you rich is by putting the money in and letting it grow over time and not dumping it into overpriced coffee. But if you do want some overpriced coffee, you can buy it from me at buymeacoffee.com/tonejunkie. So look up index fund. Look up what a mutual fund is. Just Google terms you don't know. Mutual funds are just collections of stocks. They're just baskets. Someone got together and sometimes they're like, hey, here's all the stocks that start with a Y. And sometimes they're like, here's all the stocks in green energy. Here's all the automakers. Here's all the airlines. Sometimes they go, here's the biggest 500 companies in the world. Here's the biggest 2,000 companies in the world. You know, here's 2,000 small businesses with a market cap of under $100 million that we think are going to grow fast. All of these things are investments you can make and might be provided to you through like a 401k or whatever, like a 403b type program. Once you've done that, look into something called an IRA. An IRA is an individual retirement account. And there's a Roth IRA and a regular IRA, or traditional IRA. And I would say this for almost everybody. For almost everybody, you want to go with the Roth. You know why? You put in money year after year, it grows and grows and grows. And guess what? At the end, the government goes, that's tax-free. You get to grow your money and all the growth comes tax-free. That's incredible. And for a lot of people, you usually make less money when you're younger and more money when you're older. And, you become more accomplished and maybe you get some raises. And so a traditional IRA will allow you to write off the money you put in. So if you put in $3,000, right? If you put in $1,000 and you go to, and at the end of the year, you get to tell the IRS, hey, I put $1,000 in my IRA. Don't tax me on $1,000. And they go, okay, sounds good. But we're going to tax you later when you take it out. And for a lot of people, they actually, it can work out better for them to pay the little bit of taxes now because they may not make a lot, especially when they're young in their 20s and stuff. And then as you get older, when you're in your 50s, maybe you're further along in your career and you're making more money. This is when having that money be tax-free is actually very valuable because maybe you're making more money and your taxes are getting higher. So check out a Roth IRA. Check out mutual funds, index funds. If you want a good strategy for investing when you know very little about stocks and you don't want to get complex, look up something called the Lazy 3 fund or the Lazy 3 portfolio. The lazy 3 portfolio from memory breaks down like this. You're going to buy 80% of a mutual fund. It was started by a guy named Jack Bogle, and he started a company called Vanguard. Now, when he started in the 70s, this idea of mutual funds and index funds was much different. He thought this. He said, hey, all these guys who try to outdo everybody and make the biggest returns, a lot of them aren't very good at it. And you shouldn't put your money with them because they charge you fees. So we're going to get the fees to almost nothing, and we're just going to buy the top 500 stocks, or we're going to buy a little bit of every single stock on the market. And you're going to get the average. And since the beginning of time, the S&P has averaged 6.7% since the market, since as long as they've been tracking it, really, since indices have been tracked. And so that almost 7% return will double your money every 10 years. So if you put in $1 and you just put it into the indexes, that 6.7% return, if you have 40 years, man, that's gonna probably 5 or 6x your dollars, which is really important and which is really great. And you might even see a lot more growth than that, to be honest with you. But since the beginning of time, that's been the average, 6.7%. So you got to use that to your advantage. So he came up with this idea of the lazy 3. He said, hey, if you know nothing about stocks, you don't know if you're picking a winner or a loser, then you're kind of in this boat. You hope you pick the winner. That would be great. But if you pick the loser, you might be in real trouble. You need this money to eat. You need this money to feed your family, to take care of your spouse, to take care of your kids. You need this money when you're old and you need medicine. So he said this, let's just go after the average. So let's buy a little bit of everything. So the lazy 3, I think, works like this. I think it's you buy 7, you can look it up. Look up lazy 3. It's 70% total stock market. That's our domestic U.S. stock market. So put 70% of your money in this total stock market. Put, I think, 20% of your savings in the international stocks, so that if internationally, as China comes up, as India comes up, as the dollar takes a beating in some decades, you'll have appreciation over there. And then the other thing, you just do 10% in real estate. And Vanguard has a number of funds, but they have 3 funds you can invest in. You can set it up. Every time you put in $100, they split it up for you. I'm a big fan of Vanguard. I use Vanguard. It's a platform that I'll just tell you, if you sign up with Vanguard, it's a platform that is used really for people who buy and hold and save for retirement. You're not going to see all these crazy graphs if you're really into trading and you want to see candlesticks and stuff. You take that stuff to Fidelity, Thinkorswim, TD Ameritrade. You don't want that at Vanguard. Don't do anything with Robinhood. They're the most terrible people on the planet. But anyway, you basically just want to buy and hold, and your long-term Vanguard is great, and they have so many cheap funds, and I like them. And if you want to get advanced, you can do everything. I do stuff on Vanguard, and you can do everything. You can buy calls, options. You can do level 3 and 4 stuff where you're writing cash protected securities. You can write options yourself. You can write puts and calls. You can do all that stuff. You can straddle. You can do all the stuff. It gets as advanced as you want, but the interface is not so technical and sort of millennial, if you know what I mean. That's where you want to start. And as you get started there, you're going to open yourself up to a world of mutual funds and, just investing. That's going to be incredible, and eventually you can get into stuff like, how can I make a couple $100 a week by betting that Tesla does not go to $500 this week? I can show you how to do that. That's in there. How do you make extra money and lower your cost basis on long-term positions? There's a million things you can do in the stock market. The stock market is not always viewed as a creative place, but actually investing involves a lot of creativity. And it doesn't always seem that way, but it's a little different kind of creativity. But I very much respect investing for its creativity. Now, I want to be very clear. I have been posting about GME and stuff, and I'm posting this podcast to my personal page too, because a lot of people who I know personally have been asking me these questions. What's been going on with me and GameStop, that is not investing. I am at a virtual casino with GameStop, okay? And I won big, and I'm going to win, and there's some more big wins coming. I'll explain that. But I want to make it clear, this is not investing. Do I think Bitcoin is going to $200,000? Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, Bitcoin will be $200,000. When? I don't know. Do not put all your money in Bitcoin. It's too volatile. That's not a good way to save for retirement. Do not put all your money in GME. That's dumb. That's dumb. Do not do that. When you see on my page, HW, you turned $7,000 into $250,000? Yes, but I only got 120 cash out. My investment, that other portion, had tanked. So look, GME, I turned 7K into 100 and I don't know what it is now, 30, 140, something like that, thousand, right? But had I got in at a different time, I might have turned 10K into 2K, right? That's very possible. So it's important that you have a good foundation of solid, slow, long, reasonable investing foundation. And when you have that, it's okay to make a gamble. And I made a gamble. A $7,000 gamble is not small to me. I don't hold $7,000 with no regard. You know, I have a lot of respect for capital. I hold capital dear. I hold my capital precious. It is so important to me because I try to think of every dollar as its future value. And I know what $1 in Tesla can become in the right time. I know what $1 in Virgin Galactic can become. I know what $1 in Pershing Square Tontine Holdings can become with its 2-9 warrant structure. Those are my 3 biggest holdings, right? And those are ones I'm hugely bullish on. But I know what capital can become when you just place it in VFIAX, in SPY, just in the S&P 500, just in the general market. I know what that becomes. That's the ability. Listen, $1 today is the ability for me to have a meal at the end of my life. $1 today feeds my wife one meal in the morning, in the afternoon, and the evening, right? One meal. So $3, because I can grow that $3 into $6 or $7 in the time I have with a ton of security. And then I can take some more speculative investments, like I can go into single stocks when I have my base. I view it like this. I build my foundation on indexes, and then from there I go into singles. And I go into other more speculative things and other more speculative mutual funds like Genomics. Genomics is the future of medicine, right? AI is the future of programming. So genomics and AI to me are the two things that are some of the biggest world-changing technologies. But I'm not always smart enough to pick the best AI company and the best genomics company because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a researcher. How can I know which companies truly hold the foundational patents for the genomics patents that are fully going to exploit genome mapping and enable us to look at a child and go, he needs gene therapy? Because if not, we're going to have a thing called cancer again. And there's a real possibility that in the next 20, 30 years through genomics, and I mean, please, I know. But listen, it's really just, this is going to sound very arrogant. It's very difficult for me to be so right about a company like Tesla, and it just goes so high, and you still have people give you the most ridiculous arguments about them. You cannot argue when someone has the fastest growing margins in an old industry in which margins are not changing, right? You can map on a line when their margins will exceed Toyota. So the argument that they're overpriced for a car company, they're not even overpriced for a car company. But if you call them overpriced for a car company, You're discounting the foundational patents of battery technology. You're discounting that they're the only company with a solution for infinitely scalable energy storage on an industrial and commercial application that is infinitely scalable. Did I mention infinitely scalable? And guess who their competition is? No one. No one else has an infinitely scalable solution. If I try to go to Sunrun, if I call Tesla installs solar panels, if I go get solar panels right now from a competitor of Tesla, and I say, do you have a battery? You know what they say? Yes, we are certified installers of the Tesla Powerwall. They don't have another solution. Then, when you understand the value that is their AI, they are the most advanced robotics company on the planet. They are the most advanced manufacturing entity on the planet. They are a company who it was obvious 2 years ago held the brain power and the value in their expertise, their knowledge, their patents to become the most important single company on the planet, and they will. And if you can't see they are today, then you and I are so far away on on where the future is going, right? I know, because the thing is, everyone forgets how old this thing is. My life is not like my dad's life at this age. I do not live like my dad at 34. If I could meet my dad at 34 today, I'd be like, bro, you are more different than to me than someone who came from like the amount of difference in the way my dad lived his life at 34 and I lived my life at 34 is like discovering a person in a jungle who doesn't know about our civilization. It is that different. I'm so glad that I'm like one of the oldest millennials, because honestly, I think it gives my little window of a generation has the best perspective. We don't sit back and not adopt technology like a lot of our boomer parents. And yet we also remember not having this. And so we have this unique perspective where we go, wow, that really changed fast. And yet we also are knee deep in the tech, right? We're not pushing it off because we're not at the age where we're not yet adopting it. We're right at that generation who didn't get the phones until we were in junior high, and all we had was Snake on a free Nokia phone. And because of that, we're in this really unique place to appreciate how quick it's all changed. My mom calls me and doesn't text me. I literally go, oh, God, what? Why is someone calling me? Why don't they just text me? And unlike people younger than me, I recognize that to them, they're like, oh, boomers. But I actually get it because I get my mom and I remember calling people. I know it's not crazy, but I still have a little bit of that emotion. So I get to straddle this line where I really can see how fast everything has changed, and I get to go knee deep and jump head first, right? It's why, and look, I know there's a lot of older people I respect who do that too. And there's some of the people I hold to be I have the most respect for the older people who I see. And I just mean, if you're 45 and up, but you adopt new tech constantly, and you're constantly updating your iPhone and getting on new platforms. And if you've got Alexa in your house and you're over 45, I got so much respect for you. Because I see someone who's actually like really intelligent. Who's like really thinking about things. That doesn't mean if you're not doing those things, you're not intelligent. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's a rare bird to, as you get really in the later, not later, 45's not old, 50's not old or anything. But I mean, you figured it out, all right? You ain't no spring chicken at 45. Ain't no one gonna come in and tell you what life's all about. You know. You either the school of hard knocks or your parents taught you some lessons. You do not get to 45 and 50 without figuring out how this life works. And that's why you rarely see people at that age who haven't thought about investing, because they figured it out. Doesn't matter. Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump, doesn't matter who you like. Ain't nobody coming to save you. You are in charge. Ain't nobody coming to save you. They can up your Social Security. You still ain't going to live that well. So the problem, the solution that is investing, it's the problem you have, and no one's coming to save you from it. And people figure that out. And that's why young people don't invest as much. They haven't figured out the problem. They don't appreciate their own mortality. They never woke up with a back that hurt. I'm at the age now where I'm good. I recovered. I kicked coronavirus's butt. I fought that thing off fine. I'm still young. I do all sorts of stuff. I don't have a bunch of pain or anything in my eyes. I got some light glasses, but I'm good. But I'm right at that age where if I sleep with the wrong pillow, it feels like I was in a car accident, right? Like it's right at that point where it's like, the body's like, hey, you mess with me too much, right? And I will break down. But I'm good. We're good. We're young. Getting over stuff, right? I kick stuff quick. So if you're one of those people who you go, I don't think we're going to cure cancer in 20 to 30 years, then I would just say you are greatly underestimating one of the great investing opportunities of our time. Because what a lot of people don't seem to appreciate is we have mapped about 5 million humans' genome. We've mapped their DNA. 2.5 million were done in the last 12 to 18 months. And we've been able to map these for years, a long time. So it's accelerating big time. And we have already edited the genes of the first cancer patient, and that person is still in remission. You can go look this stuff up. Look up what they've done, what CRISPR has done to the first person who had cancer, that they were able to edit his genes, and it's still good because a lot of these mutations actually happen when the cells fail to reproduce correctly. It's an error in the code of your DNA. And human genome therapy actually allows us to go in and correct the mistake because we see that mutations form, and sometimes those mutations are very harmful. The ability to change that is incredible. Also, if you think about just this, you underestimate, or a lot of people underestimate, the amount of cancer that we can actually eliminate before it shows up. The reason they tell everyone to go get colonoscopies at 40 and 50 is because that's when problems show up. And the statistical possibility that you would develop any colon cancer or anything like that at a younger age is almost nil. So because of that, they don't recommend you test. But actually, if there's a cost associated with going and getting a little camera stuck up your butt, right? By a doctor who makes a lot of money and a tech who makes a lot of money in a facility that costs a lot of money. What does this have to do with investing? It has everything to do with investing. That cost makes it prohibitive for them to send every single person at the age of 20. It's not worth it. They're not going to find anything. But for that person that they do find something, it could be life-changing. But genomics offers us testing capability that could actually link different mutations or different genes in your genes that are associated with that, that are associated with something like colon cancer, so that they can say this: hey, no one's ever going to tell you to go at 20 to go get a colonoscopy, but because you took a $65 test, like a mail-in test like 23andMe, or because you did a much more expensive genome mapping thing that could be available for $1,500, $1,600, $3,000, $10,000, $15,000, whatever, similar to how LASIK is available today. My wife just got LASIK. Her vision is cured. She's no longer blind. This is a miracle. We live in miracle times. For how? Lasers. We're literally shooting people in the head with lasers and they can see. You tell George Lucas that. Well, hello. This is mind-blowing. We're shooting people in the head with lasers and they can see. Need I say anything else? We're not going to cure cancer in 20 to 30 years. Get out of here. Get out of here. You might as well tell me the world is going to end. That's how sure I am. And if I'm wrong and I'm off by 50 years, I mean, my portfolio will my genomics investments would still blow up in 30 years because we'd be well through human testing. It would be so obvious in 30 years that the returns would be big. All that to say this. I can't even get over it. We're shooting people in the head with lasers and their eyes work. I mean, that's just, come on. The ability to take a $65 test, this is where I was going, the ability to take a $65 test and for someone to say, you know what, you actually have a gene that we associate with a higher risk of colon cancer. And you actually, although at 20, we still doubt we'll find anything, you actually have a 6x probability of developing colon cancer. So we actually do want you to get checked at 20. My wife, she has a parent who, both her parents died of cancer, and her mother died of colon cancer. And because of that, they told her, you need to start getting colonoscopies at 30, not 40 and 50. You need to do it at 30. And so she started doing them in her late 20s and still does them because that's just medicine learning its lesson, going, hey, there's a genetic component to this. And if we can identify it in your genes, regardless of your family history, just a one-on-one, do this test and let us see what's going on in the genes, that opens up the realm to even early detection. Now we can detect stage 0 and stage 1 cancer far earlier than we would. And then we can use existing technology to treat those before they're ever an issue. So to me, ARC-G to the moon. I can't pick genomics companies because I'm not a researcher. I don't know everything. I only know a couple off the top of my head, right? The most notable is CRISPR. But I want to invest in a fund that picks all those things and does it together. There's investing opportunities. That's what I mean when it comes with creativity. There's a creative side to this. So here's what's happening with GME. I'm going to get through this GME saga and then I'm going to let you go. Because you probably want to go research Vanguard and the Lazy 3 portfolio, or you want to go look up ARC-G, which is a genomics fund that I invest in. And maybe you want to look at Tesla. Maybe you want to look at GameStop. Maybe you want to look at AMC. AMC is actually trading near its value. I don't know how a lot of people don't see that. It's still very manipulated and stuff, and we'll get into that in a moment. But GME is still very high based on the fundamentals. But AMC is not that high based on the fundamentals. They've got some issues, but they're not that high based on the fundamentals. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, AMC might still be double the fundamentals, but it's not. It might not be. It might not be. It is an interesting company. Here's what happened with GME in a nutshell, and this is the version that you're not going to get on CNBC. And this is why I tell you Robinhood is some of the worst people on the planet. They easily cost me $100,000 last week, but I still was a big winner. Here's what happened. In September, there's a guy named DFV. His actual name is Deep Effing Value on Reddit. He went on a place called Wall Street Bets, where a bunch of people hang out. I'll describe Wall Street Bets to you this way. It's like a frat house, but for investing in stocks. People use all sorts of non-PC terms. They call each other retards and autists and apes. And it's not PC at all. It's not trying to be. It's mostly memes and phallic jokes. But there actually is a lot of good due diligence in there. There's a lot of people really thinking about stocks, and it's full of a lot of people who feel this way. They're young, they have $1,500 in their pocket, and they sit and they look at their student loans. They're $100,000, and they look at their job. They make 25 to 40 grand a year, and they're getting by, and they're going, "Hey, $1,500 to me." It just doesn't feel like I can get out of the hole I've dug for myself with my student loans and my car loan and this, and I can't get ahead. But you know what? If I could turn that into 15,000, I'll take that bet. So they're just betting. And if you go on there and you try to say, hey, why don't you guys buy some index funds? Why don't you do some smart things like invest in a Roth IRA? They'll go, shut up, boomer. Those are boomer gains. Get out of here. Ain't nobody got time for that. And that's Wall Street Bets, right? I'm not saying that. That's what Wall Street Bets says. It's a hilarious place. I'll be honest with you, I hang out there and I read about some of the due diligence happening over there, and it's made money because there are some really interesting ideas out of there, right? Just like, a college student thought up Facebook. I mean, so that kind of thing happens. So basically, a guy named DFV made a $50,000 investment in GameStop and said, this company can turn around. They're too shorted. And for you to understand what a short is like this. A company like a hedge fund will go to someone and say, hey, you got 100 shares of company A? Yeah, I got some shares. Okay, let me borrow them. Really, they borrow them from the broker most of the time. But anyway, the broker will actually say, we got 10,000 people holding 100 shares each. I'll loan you some shares. Okay. They borrow the shares and they sell them at full value. So they actually sell them and they get, $100 a share. And they go, I'll give them back to you in 3 weeks. Well, they do that because they think the stock's going down and they think in 3 weeks they'll be able to buy them back for $50. So then they sold them for 100, bought them for 50, returned the shares back, and then they keep the spread. Well, the risk they take is if that stock goes up. Because if they sell it for 100, but then later it goes up to 115 or 150, well, they have to buy it back at 150 and their position lost money. Then usually what they do is short it again. They go, okay, here, I'll buy it at 150. Here you go. They get a loan, and then they go, now let me. They get a loan to cover it, and then they go, now let me borrow more shares at 150. They sell those shares. They've now covered their loss. They pay off the loan, or they don't pay the loan. They just hold on, and then they hope that it's 75 next week, and then they keep the spread, and then both investments actually made money. You can do that. The problem is, when you go longer and longer and longer and higher in your short position, and eventually the price starts going up or people start holding the stock and not allowing them to be lent out, a thing can happen called a short squeeze, where you get to the point where there's all these shorts who thought the price was going to go down, it went up, and the amount of shares they need to buy to return to the people they borrowed them from, well, that is a high portion of the amount of shares available. When you're losing, it doesn't matter. When the price is going down, it doesn't matter. But when the price starts to go up and the amount of shares available starts to restrict because people are holding them or there's a lot of competition to buy them, the price can start going up very quickly, very, very quickly. And another thing that can happen is you get something called a gamma squeeze, which a gamma in options. So options are the right or a contract to purchase shares in the future. And if I own 100 shares, I can write a call option and I can say, hey, I got 100 shares of this company. And if you give me like $5 per share today, I'll give you the opportunity to buy it for more money for like a certain value in the future at this date. Now, why would you do that? Well, it's a way to say, I think this stock's going up and I think it's going up big, but I don't want to use up all my cash. So I'm going to pay you $5 per share. And I think it's going to go up like 50%. So I want the right to buy it from you at a 10% premium from the price today. And I want the right to do that in 1 month. When that month comes around, if the stock went up 50%, I only gave you $5 per share. You have to sell them to me for 10% more, but I probably have a good 35% of the share price, which is my winnings, my premium. And I only paid you $5 for it. And if the stock's $100, I only paid you $5. And now I get 100 shares and I get a free $335 per share. And that's $3,500 I just made on a $500 investment. That really works out. And you made some money. You got the $5. And you might have gotten to keep the stock if it didn't go up, but it went up. You got your $5 plus the strike price was a little above, so maybe you made another $10. So you got $15 of value. I got $35 of value. Stock went up $50. You got 15, I got 35. I win. You win. You could have had more had you not sold me the option, but had the price went down, you would have kept my premium. And so, it gets very complicated and stuff. But there's something called a gamma squeeze, and the gamma measures delta. So the options all have there's these 5 Greeks, they call them. So real quick, like you can ignore me on this. Theta measures the decay of the price over time. Gamma measures the effect on delta or the change in delta. And delta measures the Delta measures the effect on the option price as a portion of the underlying stock. So delta's like this. Delta's like if a stock is $100 and it goes up to 101, how much did the option change? Right? That value of the change in the option could go up a lot, could go up a little. That's delta, right? And then gamma measures the change in delta, which is important because stocks are either calls are in the money or out of the money. Anyway, none of that's important. The important thing is that basically a short squeeze started happening, and a lot of us were thinking a gamma squeeze is going to happen. And my experience was I saw the stock coming up and I bought it at $40 knowing that this could happen. Oh, here's what happened to Deep Effing Value. He went on in September, put in 50 grand, and at one point he was worth 47 million. He said the stock's gonna go up. People start talking about a short squeeze. Michael Burry from The Big Short, Christian Bale played him, who shorted mortgage-backed securities in 2008, called the financial crisis, made a bunch of money. He still has a company called Scion Capital and pretty much just uses his own money. He basically looked at GameStop and said he disclosed that he had moved 3% of his entire portfolio into GameStop. And people went, whoa. And he did it on this. He said, hey, look, Xbox and PlayStation are both making versions of their next-gen systems that have discs. And if they are doing that, that means you need a place to buy discs. So GameStop, even though it is going down in value, and even though it's not the company it was, it now has a 7-year runway where the market that it serves is going to be in existence and thriving for 7 years. So that just extended its life big time. So, and the shorts weren't sure if that was going to happen. A lot of people weren't sure if Xbox and PlayStation were going to allow you to have a disc version. And what they did is they basically said, here's a disc version and a non-disc version, because a lot of people are just downloading games today. But honestly, downloading games is still kind of difficult because the games are big and the servers are very slow. It's not an issue of bandwidth at your house. It's an issue of Microsoft isn't delivering you more than 25 or 30 megabytes per second and on the download of the game. And when you are experiencing that, it's not fun to have a game take 5, 6, 10 hours to download. It's really not. So the user experience of a lot of people say, everyone's downloading games. Why wouldn't you download games? You download movies. Yeah, well, games are like 10 and 20 times the size of like movies. So, and they can't be compressed the same way. So honestly, as someone who still plays video games like recreationally, I will tell you, the user experience on only downloading your games kind of sucks. It really does. It really sucks. And it's a lot of people setting games to download overnight, and then sometimes they wake up to an error or a disconnect from the server, and they're screwed. I even see gamers who make thousands of dollars a day on streams. They miss days streaming because they can't get the game downloaded fast enough, and then some can, and it's actually a big problem. And until Microsoft and PlayStation fix that, I mean, there's a real market viability for discs and stuff. Anyway, there's more to it than that, but at the end of the day, Michael Burry and DFV both made some strong cases. At the same time, you had a guy named Ryan Cohen, who was from a company called Chewy.com. They're a $1 billion pet supplier, pet food and pet accessory supplier, Chewy.com. And they were very successful at that company. Ryan Cohen bought 9% of the company and tried and wanted, got a board seat. And then he disclosed that he had bought another 6%, and he was now at 15%, and he was trying to take over the board to turn it around. And when he started, people said, no, GameStop's like Blockbuster, you can't turn it around. He started tweeting pictures of Blockbuster to sort of mock them, and everyone knew. This is like Elon Musk selling physical shorts. He's selling mesh shorts that say Tesla on the bum to mock the shorts. And this was Ryan Cohen mocking the shorts of the stock and mocking people, saying it would be like Blockbuster. So it's really interesting what was happening. But basically what happened was I saw this thing going up. I bought $7,000 in options. By the end of that day, they were worth $30,000. And by the next morning, it was worth about $150,000. Because I'm not a complete idiot, I cashed out about $120,000 and I allowed $30,000 to ride. The next morning, options don't recalculate until the market opens, but you can do some rough math and kind of figure out what you think they're going to be. It's hard to know what the delta and gamma is going to be on the stock. It's hard. You don't need to know the Greeks really, but you can see from one day to another, theta hasn't changed much. Delta could change a lot, especially if gamma's high. Anyway, the point is, I woke up and I now in my account had 120 cash, 30 in more calls that I had pushed out. And I knew that those calls that morning when the market opened, they were going to recalculate and I was going to have about $250,000. So at that moment, I was realizing I had turned 7,000 into $250,000. Now, it's not the best performance I've seen on GME stock because I saw a guy on Wall Street Bets who, with GME and like 3 other stocks in the past like 3 or 4 weeks, he turned about $950,000. Sorry, he turned $950 into over $500,000. So he takes the cake. But I'll take like a bronze medal or something. You know, I'm in the pack of best returns here. 7K turned into about $250,000. And then 5 minutes before the opening bell, Robinhood and several other brokers announced they would not allow any more purchases of GME. You could sell only. This tanked the stock to about 190. I still was way up at 180 and stuff, 120 in cash, 60 in the position. And then, the stock's done what it's done. I was able to pull some cash out over time. I mean, I still cleared, about 130 or so, and I still have a position in the stock. The other day I was able to pull out, another 2,000 or 3,000 based just on movement. But, Robinhood, and then here's what happened with Robinhood. Basically, Robinhood came out and said, we're restricting the stock. Why? They said it was a liquidity issue. They might have had a liquidity issue. Here's what happened, though, that people aren't talking about. Melvin Capital is a big hedge fund. They were shorting GME. They had lost $3 billion in a few weeks. A company called Citadel LLC gave them $3 billion and bought into the hedge fund. That Citadel LLC is a sister company to an execution service company called Citadel Execution Services. And they basically are the market maker in the middle. So when you sell something, a market maker buys a position and immediately connects it to a seller. They're the people in the middle. They kind of buy everything you're selling and they kind of sell everything you're buying, but they're really just a middleman, and they function to make sure that when I have 5 shares to sell, you have 3, that guy has 5, this guy has 60, that guy has 480. It's very difficult to match up one-on-one. If I have to find a buyer who needs 7 shares and I'm selling 7 shares, you won't have a robust market. What we would have to do at that point is put in blocks of, you can only buy 100 or 1 share at a time. That would be very difficult. To allow the market to operate, we have these market makers in the middle. Well, the market maker basically took a position in a share price. They took a position and then they claimed that they needed to limit the price of the stock. It's the biggest bunch of BS I've ever heard. It's no different than had they took a position in Wells Fargo and then said, we're not going to allow anyone to buy Bank of America because they want Bank of America to go under. Market makers should not be allowed to take positions in equities. Citadel's official statement was Citadel Execution Services doesn't even know about the positions of Citadel LLC. Well, I knew about the position because it was in the freaking headlines, you idiot. Okay? Kramer's got it all over CNBC. Over the next 48 hours, CNBC manufactured stories about a silver squeeze, which I still... Look, a lot of the things people are talking about in the silver market may exist. I don't believe you could squeeze a silver market, but whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about, so maybe I'm completely wrong. That's fine. I could be completely wrong. I could be wrong about everything here. I really don't know. But the point is, Vlad and Robinhood, I do believe, cost me $100K that morning. And that's fine. It's not lost on me that 7 to 125 or whatever is huge, right? So I got to choose to not be upset at them. But, because being upset at people just robs you of your own joy. And that's ultimately not wise. Hate, anger, anxiety, fear. These things are most damaging to the people that hold them, not the people whom they are kind of focused towards. And so I give up my ill feelings towards those people personally. I do think they stole something from me, but, they have my other cheek. They can slap me again. I'm not using their service anymore, so I'm not like asking for it, but they can manipulate the market again, and that could happen. But ultimately, my investing goals is financial freedom and security for myself and my family, and then as an extension, my community, which involves my church. So for me, gains are a way to influence and have power to affect the change I want to see in the world. And the change I want to see in the world is a lot of the change that I believe is happening through my local church, my faith organization, and the charities I give to. So I give to places I feel most passionately about, and I want the best for my kids. A lot of people ask me, "Are you going to buy a Dumble?" A Dumble's a very expensive amplifier. With that money, no, I'm not. I'm going to continue to use it to invest because, like I said, that money has a lot more valuable later on. And now, did I redo my deck? I did. You know what I mean? Did I buy a galaxy lamp for my kids' room so they can see stars on there? Yeah, I did. Do you start to get a little more spendy on a week like that? Sure, a little bit. Yeah, but hey, if you make a return like that and you blow a couple thousand on yourself, I think that's understandable. But it's not a reason to go blow 10 grand on yourself. And I've talked to some people I respect, and they asked me some questions too, like, why did you leave 30 in the market? Why didn't you take out more? And at that point, it's, to be honest with you, when there's a brand new 150 in front of you, it doesn't feel like real money. And now looking back, I go, should I have taken out 145 and just speculated with 5? In hindsight, because I lost so much value on it coming down, there you go. But that morning, but I'll tell you this, just so it doesn't sound like a woulda, coulda, shoulda. When the market opened that day, I had already told my wife and several other people I was going to liquidate to have 200 of cash. So I was gonna cash out another 80,000. So I should say that Vlad and them probably cost me about 80K. But it is what it is. What can you do about it? Nothing. You can make a little podcast, and you can hope that people send you a coffee through buymeacoffee.com/tonejunkie. Now, I still to this day, right now, I am investing in all sorts of things, but I am still playing a little bit of a gambling game with GME, and I actually think there's a lot going on with GME. I think it's going to continue to go on. Man, my Tesla, my Virgin Galactic, and my Pershing Square are all like Pershing Square is at all-time high. Tesla is, a little bit away from the all-time high. It's going really strong. You got to make sure that you don't get you really got to make sure that you don't get a thing called Dunning-Kruger, where when you have some wins, you start to believe you're an expert in lots of things. It's a logical fallacy that happens. It's a logical fallacy. It's a thing that happens. Also, Bitcoin obviously is up. So great time to invest. It's always a great time to invest. But this GME thing is, look, last thing I'll say about this, GME inversed the market so strongly on the 29th. I'm not going to explain this, but I actually think it's evidence of something very significant and threatening to the stability of the stock market. And that is, I believe that high equity prices right now are actually a derivative of something else. I believe there is a huge derivative premium that is in the market. And where you see that is on the 29th. Look at the GME chart and look at the S&P 500 chart. Invert the GME chart and put it on top of the S&P 500 chart, and it fits together like a puzzle. You have to expand the GME chart, but it fits together if you look at it, because at the time, GME was a $30 billion company. Today, they're about a $4 billion company. That was obviously when the prices were very high. But there's a really crazy thing that's happening where the amount of call options being purchased force the market makers in the middle to buy positions, and then at times they're holding them through the close of market to the next morning, or they're just holding them at different parts. Well, the market makers in the middle, they don't so much want to hedge for a profit. To speculate or anything, they have to hedge against loss. The market makers make money no matter what. They make money on the bid-ask spread, but they make money guaranteed if they have no downside risk. So they hedge against their downside risk. Well, by doing that, when huge options go one way or go huge into a stock, they have to find liquidity quickly to hedge against that, what they're doing. And that's called their delta hedge. Delta being the change in the stocks, the change in the option value against the underlying security. So what they have to do then is, what they have to do when there's huge call interest and volatility, when calls are going crazy, they need to hedge with either underlying shares or more calls. And if they hedge with more calls, somebody has to go buy those shares. So this extra speculative behavior that we've been seeing in the market for the first time since the dot-com bubble, with these huge volume of calls, is actually, I think, driving a bit of a thing which might be one day deemed the derivative bubble. And it's causing increased demand because somebody has to buy the underlying shares, right? And when you start buying the underlying shares, this actually will result in increased delta for the call options when people go in and out of the calls. Because as we saw with GME, people were dumping their calls in S&P 500 stocks to free up liquidity so that they could buy calls in GME. That's the only explanation for it fitting together that way. And then those high delta values mean that you have large effect from capital quickly migrating. You have large effect on the equity price because people then have to liquidate. I'm just going to keep going with it. My camera ran out. I'm going to just keep going with audio here. I'm almost done. You have to liquidate those positions to free up liquidity, the market makers and the holders of the calls when they're moving over. So what you have then is the stock becoming, I believe, a derivative or a function of something else, and that is call speculation and call volume. But if the call volume shifts quickly, that changes big time the underlying position and actually can result in some pretty increased volatility, some pretty large volatility in blue chips that we don't see as very volatile. And I think that's what happened on the 29th. So we might be in something like a speculative derivative bubble where these equities are becoming derivatives of something else, and that is demand for calls, demand for options, demand for hedge and speculative positions. I have no idea. I've been HW. Thanks so much for listening. HW, out.